What you're witnessing in the UK really is a big change in the immigration debate, but not necessarily immigration policy. So what's happened, just a 1 minute of context for viewers and listeners who may not be familiar. From 2004 until today, Britain has had an unprecedented experiment with mass immigration. It began with Tony Blair opening the doors to workers from within Europe. We saw net migration, the number of people coming in minus the number of people leaving, rocket from 50,000 at the end of the 1990s to about 350,000 by the time of the Brexit vote in 2016. And the Brexit vote, as all of the studies show, John, was primarily driven by concern over immigration and a desire to lower the overall numbers and control our borders. The Conservatives were the main beneficiary of that political realignment over migration. And when Boris Johnson really capitalized on that in 2019, winning an enormous majority, he promised the country lower overall numbers and a high-skill immigration policy. That was the Boris Johnson offer in 2019. What then happened in the years through the COVID pandemic is that Boris Johnson and the Tories, and I won't mince my words, they lied to the country, they betrayed Conservative voters, and they did the opposite of what they promised. Instead of a high-skill migration policy, we got a low-skill migration policy. Instead of lower numbers, we got record numbers that we've never seen before in British history. Net migration surged to basically 1 million people every year, meaning 1 million more people are coming into the country than leaving. And Boris Johnson also changed the origin of migration. So today, about 90% of all migration into Britain is coming from outside of Europe, from culturally different, if not incompatible nations, I would argue, such as Pakistan, parts of Africa, the Middle East, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Eritrea. And so you've seen this explosion of legal migration, much of it low skill, much of it low wage. That, as now government reports are finally acknowledging, that is a net fiscal cost to the British taxpayer. It's not actually driving prosperity. It's not driving growth. And aligned to that, John, we've then lost control of the borders through illegal migration. From 2018 onwards, lots of illegal migrants began to arrive on small boats, with those numbers also surging. And so by the time of the election last year, the British people were understandably utterly frustrated, utterly fed up. And Keir Starmer and the Labour government really basically become the beneficiary of much of that. They're just the opposition. And they came in and said, well, let's take control of the borders and let's lower migration, or let's get our arms around it. The only problem with that, John, is basically what Keir Starmer and Labour did was the opposite of what you'd want to do to solve the immigration crisis. When it came to illegal migration, they removed the only deterrent that we had, which was the Conservative Party's Rwanda plan, which was to basically process illegal migrants offshore to send them to Rwanda. Labour got rid of that. They basically decriminalized illegal migration. They said, no, we're going to allow these people into Britain. We're going to put them up in hotels. We're going to put them up in private accommodation. We're going to be very generous in terms of welfare. And in terms of legal migration, as we're now seeing with Keir Starmer, they're basically tinkering around the edges, saying, well, we'll try and increase the skill level if we can. We're going to ask people to learn English. We think that's probably a good thing to do, given that that's our national language. And we're going to make some noises about multiculturalism not really working, but there's no legal cap on migration. Labour have not committed what number they want to preside over. Much of the economy is going to remain completely untouched by these measures. And Keir Starmer, bizarrely, is claiming to be tough on immigration while signing a trade deal with India, where he's given tax exemptions to Indian workers that are not available to their British counterparts. So he is incentivizing big business to basically hire workers from abroad who will be cheaper. There is no set number for what Keir Starmer would like to achieve in terms of migration levels. And as we know, left progressive parties basically are pretty instinctively comfortable with large amounts of migration. So nobody thinks this is going to work. Nobody really believes Keir Starmer when he says he's going to get tough on migration. And all of that is exactly why Nigel Farage is surging in the polls. Because if the top two reasons for voting reform in all of the surveys, in all of the polling, the top two reasons: stop the votes, stop the illegal migration, and lower the overall level of legal migration. Those are the top two reasons for voting reform. And as you and I talked, John, migration in May 2025 has just become the number one issue in British politics in the YouGov opinion polls. It's more important to people now than the economy. So this is a new realignment, basically. Brexit reshaped our politics in 2016 over our relationship with Europe, even if it was a proxy for migration. And now this new era of mass migration, this is my prediction, this is going to become the new fault line that is going to reshape British politics completely over the next 5-10 years, as millions of people outside of London, Oxford and Cambridge say, look, we do not recognize our country anymore. We do not want this pace of change. We do not want this scale of cultural transformation. We want to go back to something we recognize versus that elite minority in the Labour Party, the universities, the BBC, in the cities that is saying, well, actually, diversity is our strength and we're going to keep jamming this experiment down your throat. So that's basically where we are, John, in the migration debate.